right. We ready?
Yep.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Chapter 1. I am Frank Perrine.
I'm Cody Decker, and this is no longer Chapter 1.
Correct. It is called Live from Saturn.
There's a couple reasons for a name change. The biggest one being it does not come up in your YouTube search if you search the name Chapter 1.
Yeah, and I've had problems with that.
Yeah,
I'm
like
looking for the stuff, and I can't
we're
even
on
find it.
and we couldn't find it.
Yeah.
So imagine if someone who doesn't even know who we are. Imagine a world like that.
So I'm texting Cody, hey, can you text me the link?
I had
dude?
to send him he's like, I want to see it.
Yeah.
And he still can't find it. So, yeah, we're changing the name. And so we can talk about things that aren't books.
Yeah, and that's why we thought about that, hence, I mean, I don't want to get deep into it, galaxies and all that stuff. But in the end, we wanted something kind of catchy and then something that would look cool on whatever we printed on, but also that we can go over anything we want, not just books. We want to talk about how movies impact books and also just other things, movies, video games. We want to actually make it more of a broad aspect.
Yeah, because I never want to feel like I'm like, oh yeah, we have to talk about books. We're talking about like a show that we both don't like that's been out recently.
Yeah. 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 I mean, not saying that you're in the moonlight, but
I got you, Moon Knight,
yes.
all night.
Ooh, wow. But we want to be able to talk about that stuff, not just in the show as part of it. We want to be able to do outside of that. So, because I know that, yeah, you might go to a book podcast, or you might go to an X podcast. You might do this, and you might have like 3 different podcasts that you listen to because they all kind of talk about one thing or another. We wanted to just bring it all in at once so you could listen to it all the time, because we're always going to be talking about something that somebody's interested in.
Yeah. Also, by the time this is up, we're going to be on audio, all the audio stuff too. So I don't know how to do it. Like, okay, well, if it's a book podcast, can we put in a thing about a show in here? Do we have to give it a separate title? Do we have to make a different account? It just makes it to where it's like we're free to just talk about anything. We don't have to after this, we don't have to go reworking through stuff. Yeah,
and we were thinking of all sorts of different things, like in the fact that, taking a certain amount of books and then talking about what we would do if we would make them into a TV show or a movie. Just that, and whether they would work or whether they wouldn't work. And so there's a lot of different ideas. And if you guys have ideas, definitely send them in, because we want to make sure that you guys are happy and that more people listen.
Yeah, and in fact, we have a whole thread on our Discord that is just for sending in suggestions, which we read through all that stuff. And it's its own section, that way we can,
Yeah, and definitely come on the Discord. So it's funny, I missed a few days. And then I'm reading stuff. I'm like, oh man! And then I'm afterwards liking it.
Yeah.
Like responding to it. 5 days later.
Yeah.
So I mean, most of the time I'm on there all the time. This is kind of, some of the stuff is newer for me, but definitely get on Discord, because there's a ton of people on there. A few people already listening and responding and kind of talking. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's I have fun on there. It is just like talk about games, talk about this. By the way, you guys get chairs that don't squeak all the time. It's like, yeah, we're gonna do that eventually.
Yeah.
We've tried a lot of things to avoid the squeak, but we were just gonna have to get new chairs anyway.
Well, hopefully it's not like Dungeon Carl, where we're stuck with the chairs because everyone likes the squeaky chairs.
Yeah,
we're stuck in our chonies.
Or which we're in, by the way, when we record these. It's another reason we like that series.
Yes.
But yeah, we're gonna, and this will probably end up being a live thing we do, but this is gonna be a seasonal recap of just all the books we went through, which is more than I thought we did when we actually sat there and counted them. We went through 15 books already.
Yeah, and by the time you see this, you might see another episode with Professor X, good friend of ours. So tell us what you like, whether we all work together. It was fun. It was really fun to do that.
Yeah, and it is really cool having someone that actually knows terms that I'm like, I think there's a thing about this.
Yeah, that was But you can never tell if I'm telling the truth or not. So
it's actually crazy, because he just he lied to me like 4 times, and I believed him each time.
I know, but anyway, so today we're just going to be going over like kind of all the books we've already done so far. Some of them fast, some of them more detailed, but definitely go back and look at and watch all the videos. So tell me what you think. You could see the evolution of when I first started doing our cartoons, our thumbnails, all the way to now. I'm doing them on a different tablet, different program, and things like that. So I'm more now putting kind of like Easter eggs of the book in there. That if you read the book and then go back and look at the thumbnail, there's some things you might get.
Yeah, I like have fun when he like sends in his thumbnails. Like I go through them, I'm like, that's like a reference to this. That's like it'll be references to things we've like said.
Yes.
It's actually I have fun with it. We might just like make a collage of those and stuff. It's
And if you get into the Patreon part of it, we're eventually going to be giving like all the ones we give out in a month digitally to you at 7 tiers, so that you can do whatever you want. If you want to print them up and make a collage of them eventually, because I mean, dude, we're already how many books now?
15.
Like 15 books so far. So, and they're exciting to do. So, but anyway, so today we're talking about all the books that we've gone through. So, I mean, 15's a lot.
I thought it was like maybe 10.
Wow. So if you're just joining, you got a lot of homework.
So, you want to get it?
Let's get into it.
Yeah. So the first one was Breeds, and I think that's like one of I think that was like the first one where we both like.
Now, do most people know the origin and how we're here?
No, I don't think
so. So you were on another podcast and you invited me to do a book podcast, and then, we kind of like the same kind of books, and so we're like, okay, let's do a werewolf book. So we did Breeds, and it was fun. It was great. You can see the evolution of us in working those things out. But Breeds, I think, was a good book. I mean, and what did you think? You thought it was good too.
Yeah, it was. I think it's my favorite werewolf book.
Because it's kind of a werewolf book, kind of a were-dog.
Yeah, it's a were-dog, were-wolf, were-man, where am I?
Yes.
It is like, I would love, this would be the perfect, just on its own horror movie. Because honestly, as the series goes on, I like it less.
Oh, wow.
I think the first book is a perfect werewolf horror story.
Yeah.
And I think I love everything it does. And then as it goes on, I get this feeling of like, I don't think this was planned.
Yeah. And I'm sure you guys already know about it. Go back and listen to it and then read it or listen to it. But I agree. I think it would make a great movie. And when you guys go listen to it, you could tell us.
Yeah, they made a movie called Werewolf Among Us, which I guess is based off just a party game called Werewolf Among Us.
Oh, party game.
I didn't know. I thought that the joke was it's Among Us, but a werewolf. I did not like that movie. But but it is like, oh, like there's a snowstorm going on. It's a small town. There's a werewolf attack, and there's like these townspeople that are trying to figure it out.
Oh, really?
And I'm just watching the movie, just being like, why isn't this Breeds? Why did this get a movie and Breeds didn't?
And if any fan people out there, you can make it. That'd be cool. Take that same movie and just throw some dogs in there.
A movie that's like mostly like elderly people, like in a small retirement town.
Yeah.
And then Alvin, I love that guy. It's like my favorite character.
Alvin was great.
Yeah.
So definitely watch that. What was our second one?
We did Old Man's War. This was also we did a fair amount of the first two were were my recommendations. I think we agreed on Breeds.
Yes.
And it's like, for my pick, it's Old Man's War.
And in the beginning, you guys got to realize, I mean, we're kind of developing this as we're going on. So, we were like, okay, which one do you want to do? Which one you want to read? And it was, we really more have now kind of a process, and we brought in the, one from the viewers, and then one of yours, one of mine. So, that was interesting. And it's working now. But in the beginning, we were just kind of almost sticking to the theme.
Yeah, well, because it was also like, I just wanted to talk about these books.
Yeah.
I mean, and with the Breeds, it was, we talked about it for an hour before we got into any real plot details. Yeah. The second part was another hour.
Yeah.
Which we're kind of going back to that. Yeah, it is like, now it's like, depending on how long a book is, It'll be a 2-parter.
And I'll be fair. I'll be honest. I don't know. Well, no, because some of the books that even though we might not like, that goes pretty long too. So it's not the time isn't that. So
it's just Old Man's War. It was my first real sci-fi book that I listened to.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Usually it would be some combination of sci-fi and fantasy.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I don't know how you felt on Old Man's War. Were you like not?
Yeah. I mean, in my idea, it had so many great premises. It just fell for me in other aspects of it.
And I mean, because the first part of the story, before you know what the plot is, I thought was amazing. I thought this was like I would tell people like, oh, this story does this with aliens.
Yeah,
they do this with aliens, and this is another one where as the series went on, I was like, oh,
but it fell short. It's like you wanted to know more about X, and it just kind of falls short.
And there's an alien race that I thought was so fascinating, and like, oh, that has so many implications, and where it's just gonna go, and we're never gonna visit those guys ever again.
Yeah,
I was like,
for a book that was low, and not saying that you can't do it in a book, because other books we've written have done that, but it was just the way it was. You were anticipating it and seeing, and you were seeing all these amazing places that you wanted to kind of see, but you never did. Yeah. So
I did finish the entire series. The second book it's definitely better told.
Oh, okay.
The first book has the issue where the protagonist just keeps getting like promoted, and like on a video game level of like, you did this mission, you got a promotion. You're the only one, and it's like, oh, but his background doesn't really justify any of this happening.
Correct.
So the protagonist I didn't like, from like a story perspective. I liked him. I found him very like charming, and I liked the character, but his role in the story I didn't like. The second book is about a different character.
Oh, good.
And they're fantastic. I love them. Their place in the world makes sense. It goes way more in depth on like
that's cool.
Everything. The third book revisits the first character, and I did not like the storyline at all. But I loved the finale of it. I thought the finale was amazing. And then the final book, I was like, I love the beginning. I hated the beginning. Then I loved it. And then I didn't care about the rest of the story. Where were you on it? You were like, yeah, this is like cool ideas.
Yeah, it was just cool ideas. It just, and I like science fiction. And I love I'll be honest with you, I love the cover of the book. It brought me back to old science fiction, that was written in the 50s and stuff. So that's what kind of hooked me, right? But like I said, I wasn't too keen on the whole, here's this character that's a school teacher, and next he's like, this, just kick-ass general that is in the right place at the right time and all the time, and making these tactical decisions, and by the end you forget his role and what he was, and then that affects me on where he's going. And then they just try to do the normal, what's gonna be really cool. Well, let's throw his wife in there as a clone, and
because I retold some of this to like my friends, and they had the same feeling where they're like, oh, is it gonna be this? I'm like, no, and they're like, oh, like that, and that's how it felt. It was like, because it's like, oh yeah, when we jump in our spaceships, we're not really through a warp. It's actually this like thing where it's like parallel dimensions, like, oh my god, and they're like, no, here's what happened, like, oh, right, I kind of preferred, I preferred the setup.
You preferred your idea instead of where they went.
Yeah, especially with the beginning, because I thought like, oh, we're gonna meet this team and we're gonna see where they go, and I think one of them is in the fourth book, but they're so out of focus, I didn't even remember. I was like, I think that's that guy.
And I don't even know how much we got from the fans. I would love to hear their thing. I mean, maybe next live that we'll talk about Old Man's War, because it's like this weird like rock that's in my shoe the whole time. Like man, I should really, really love this book. Yeah. But I'm just not there.
Because premise wise, all the stuff it's doing is so cool. Here's how aliens work, and they're like, here's the scale that we live in of like there's like 600 races, and like we're in this sector of the universe, we deal with like 30. And they're like, oh, like that level of scale, like I haven't seen done before.
It was almost like walking through the airport in Man in Black. where it's like, oh my gosh, look at that alien.
Oh yeah.
In my movie mind, I could see it, but in a movie, you don't really care if you ever find out about that eel guy. But in a book, I'm like, I want to know more about the eel guy.
Yeah. Because in the book, they're like, oh, this is what they do, by the way. We've had issues with them for this long.
Oh, yeah. They've wiped out this many people, and they've done this and that. And the center horn acts like a unicorn horn. And he walks on by and talks to this other person. You're like, what? But anyway, so let's move on to the next book. What was the next book?
Like and Fallout.
Oh, yes. That combined a lot of what I like.
It's a
Vampires, werewolves, and zombies.
It's a zombie vampire werewolf western.
You cannot go wrong with that combo.
Yeah, I love the intro. I loved everything. I love the like that feeling of like this is an old ancient vampire who like.
Yep.
You can just see the movie very clearly in your head on this one.
Oh yeah.
I think 'cause it's hard because this author, all of his books are like this guy. Well, he has like other series too, but like this guy's books are like there's like 20.
Yeah.
And it starts with Zombie Fallout, which I didn't read. I went straight to this one.
I know we started on this one, but we did do Zombie Fallout. And if I could say anything, I mean, go listen to Zombie Fallout before Like and Fallout.
It adds a lot of context.
A lot.
On the other hand, I did like
the humanity of it. You liked how the characters interacted.
Well, yeah, and I liked because we Like and Fallout, like they say oh, this is self-contained. So like it'll be enhanced if you know the story.
Yeah.
But like not knowing things, like it gave me like a new feeling.
Yeah, I could totally see that.
I liked that feeling too, where it's just like, oh, what happened to this guy's family? I didn't know he had a family. What's going on with this?
Right.
Who is this guy?
Right.
If you read Zombie Fallout, you know who he is, and you're more endeared to him already. Because I had issues with him in Like and Fallout, and there were points where I found him very annoying. But then after going to Zombie Fallout, I was like,
makes sense.
Then I'm like, oh, you know what? I get it now. And now it's a lot more endearing the way it was supposed to be.
Yeah. No, and I get it. And it's funny because some books are written where they're kind of standalone.
Yeah.
Right? Even though there might be a sequel and you might be getting things of that world that makes sense to you. But this is one of those books that even though they say it's a standalone, which it could be, it's so much better if you listen to Zombie Fallout.
There's a lot of context.
Yeah, a lot of context. And then you're like, oh man, because you know the character by then. So you know him, and that's him. So it was really good.
Which the series does go further into Demon Fallout. Which
I
was
read
like,
that.
After the conclusion of the Like and Fallout, because I think we both finished it.
Yeah.
I was just like, I really I liked that.
Yeah,
I don't
just
know
leave
if
it
I want to
alone.
see it keep going.
Yeah.
I
Because
thought-
the way it ended was great. Which makes sense towards the next series.
Yeah.
Because they get out of purgatory.
Or
wherever
the
they're at.
DMV or wherever.
Yeah. Purgatory.
I don't know. I was just like, I love this. I love that series. And I just feel like that was a nice ending, and I'm done with it.
I think so.
It wasn't like, I don't care. I was just like, maybe I'll check in on it. But
I'm almost afraid that I'll be that way. That I'll go into it thinking, oh man, you're just prolonging something that shouldn't be,
Yeah, that's
done.
on the other hand, Like and Fallout, each book got better and better.
Like a marriage.
Yeah.
You're just prolonging it.
Oh, prolonging
when
the
you know
inevitable.
it should be done. You know it should end, but you just keep on
dragging it out.
Yeah. Anyway.
So after that, we did.
After that, what's the next one?
We did Wolfen.
Oh, Wolfen was great because Wolfen was. I mean, originally most people, if they're my age, probably watched the movie when they were a kid. The movie came out in the 80s or so. After the movie sucked, but I get why, and then you have to read it, and then I listened to it. And it's like probably, and you can't even call it a werewolf book because these are creatures that have been living on this planet with us for millennial. They have come up with the ooze just like us, but they're a different species.
Yeah,
they're known as werewolves.
I really like. I always have fun with those kind of origins.
so
It's like
cool.
werewolves are our understandings of this actual creature that's here.
Yes.
And then any issues you have are like, oh, well, how long can the whole plot is kickstarted by like they made a mistake, and by the time, and then the timeline that this mistake was made in, there's no mysticism like humans are going to dismiss it as now. We have cameras and stuff, and it was like, this was an inevitable thing in this world.
Oh, it would have been.
Yeah.
And when you read the book or listen to the book, it's inevitable what's going to happen. But what's cool about it is that this book goes into the pack, into the animals or creatures that are supposedly called werewolves. And goes into them interacting with each other and talking to each other and how it works.
I love it.
It was so great.
Like seeing like how they think and talk, and I got in their mindset, and I actually got spooked when I was listening to.
Oh, because they were intelligent. They would make sounds like babies to lure people to areas so they could kill them.
Yeah, I think that like when the main characters are talking about how they're being hunted, and then you get like the book, like and narration mentioned that, like, and you see like how they're being hunted and like through the window and like it's like scratching at the glass. I got scared, which has not happened. I don't remember the last time I got scared listening to an audiobook.
Yeah,
I've been like disturbed, creeped out, but like never like actually like I'm gonna turn the lights on now.
Because these creatures could think. I mean, it's weird. They have the writer did a good job of keeping this pack mentality, but with this high intelligence.
Yeah.
Which
and
was
cool. And it made sense. It made sense. I never thought like, oh, this is just a human thought process.
No, it's funny. I didn't either.
It is like this is like you are given an insight into these minds that are alien to ours, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
I thought
it was good.
Yeah, and then
so what's the next one?
Well, after that, we did Deathlands.
Deathlands.
Which was the first graphic audio book I ever listened. This is how I found out about. This is how I found out about graphic audio.
Oh, so Deathlands. I used to buy a lot of the books. I think I have. Geez, I don't know. I probably have about 100 of them.
Which, by the way, they still release new ones on graphic audio. Yeah.
I just saw that. I was like, what? It's by an author, but then other authors have written since then, and they have, I don't know how many books now, but it's like kind of like a Fabio romance book for guys. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And especially because the romance I actually liked.
Yeah.
Which is pretty rare in a storyline for it to be well. And I thought, and like when you're given insight into each person's like with the female character, you're like given her whole like history of like her understanding of romance. And I was like, you know what? People should read, if nothing else, people should read this section. Because I'm like, that's very nice.
But think about that. You're going to say, hey, listen, baby. To really get love, you're going to have to listen to Deathlands. And she's going to be like, you are in Deathlands, bitch.
Well, look, love is a battlefield, and this is the Deathlands.
This is the Deathlands.
My love is no man's land.
Wow.
Yeah, nobody there. Yeah, I really, the only reason I don't, because if I see that a series has like more than 10, I'm like, there's no way. There's no way I'm gonna like.
And it does get stale. I mean, there's parts where it does get stale. It's the same characters over and over and over again. Yeah, he does, send Jack leaves and his son leaves, and then you're just stuck with 3 of them, and then, so that does get stale. And yeah, you love the characters, but yeah, that does get stale. I'll be honest with you.
I thought the first one was fantastic though. I loved like.
But the graphic audio is great on it.
Yeah, like I was like, guys, you can hear the truck rolling when they're in a truck.
But the only funny part, they're in this thing called a war wag, and it's like, I don't know who was looking at the audio or reviewing it, because here they are, the characters are talking. Here's this war wag, and you hear in the background like they're in a submarine. With that whole
the Paris
bing, bing, and I'm like, why the hell would that be in Death? But anyway, definitely you got plenty of books to read. So what's the next one?
Espionage and Etiquette.
Now that was a fan.
Our first fan pick.
It was kind of like a young adult, right? Book.
Yeah,
in a way. Really liked the premise. It was probably one of our shortest podcasts because it was a short kind of book.
Yeah, and I was like, I think we sat there like, we're not avoiding. Like I was like, I felt like that was an in-depth conversation about everything.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, for what it was, I think it was a great book.
Oh, you know what? Actually, yeah. That was that felt bad, because every now and then I'm like, it would be better if our videos were shorter for people, and then the response is always like, no, we want longer.
Yeah.
Because like for a while I did. I'm back at a warehouse for a bit, And it's like, yeah, you want more entertainment, not less.
Yeah.
But every time I forget, and I'm like, oh, this time it'll be better for the algorithm.
But I love the fact that, I mean, and it's funny because the fan, who was that again?
That was username is Slytherin Samari.
Yeah.
And I checked in on them and I asked them how they felt about the episode.
Oh.
Because I was like, you know, especially because like, I felt genuinely bad that it was like short.
Yeah.
And I mean, the whole thing was like, I had fun. As soon as they mentioned the flyaway man, I had a smile on my face. I was like,
and it was the most awesome part of it was the narrators.
Yeah, that narrator still stands out to me as like that was great. How I don't think any other single narrator has been able to capture like that much energy and that many distinctive voices to me.
Oh yeah,
like being like, oh, this character has a lisp, but this is like this.
Yeah,
they said they would have liked at least a brief mention of how Mrs. Barnacle Goose was the one who recommended Sophrenia to the school, and how Sophrenia is starting to change and think/act like an intelligencer while still being herself. Which I don't think we touched on.
We did
but
not.
Now we did.
Yeah, no, so, you're right. And anybody, I mean, realistically, that's a fun book. It was okay.
I had fun with it, and I'm like, if they were like, you're gonna read the second part, I'd be like, okay, like I have no problem. It's just not. It's not on my list. Yeah. But I actually had more fun with it than books I've like gone more into the series.
And it's funny because the fan base is kind of suggesting. We were just doing zombie books and doing this, and so all you guys were helping us move out of that, which is good. So what was our next one?
Well, speaking of,
see,
we did after that we did John Dies at the end.
John Dies at the end. Yes, that was a weird one for me because
when I was in high school, I thought the movie was amazing. I was like blown away. And then I like checked in on the audiobook once I was like, now I'm in a warehouse, I need stuff to listen to. Yeah. Oh, I guess I'll go and actually do these books. I'm like, I think this is for teenagers.
Yeah.
It's not YA, but I definitely thought this was a lot funnier.
Yeah, but I mean, we talked about it in the podcast. Definitely go back and watch them. But, I mean, I get it. I had to listen to it a couple times, I think, and because the humor's a certain way in the beginning and then kind of twists and starts moving along at a different pace. But towards the end, you understand why.
Yeah,
and yeah, I mean, so I was really impressed with the end, and I can't tell you, you have to go back and watch it.
Yeah, but it's one of those stories where it's like, okay, well, spoilers really matter in this.
Yeah, it really does.
But because I didn't even realize this, but the way I would pitch the books to people is I was describing what happens in books 2 and 3. So I recommended it to a friend, and they're like, none of that is in this book. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot that all of the parts that like I really loved about how it plays with narration, mostly in the sequels.
I totally have the same problem.
Because, like, like when I finished one, I jumped to the second one, then I jumped to the third one. They're all the same book to me.
Yeah. And you can't, because me comparing my relationship 3 years in, 4 years in, chapter 7... Oh my God! Chapter 13. Oh,
very few chapters are ever better than the first one.
Exactly. Well, I don't know. But anyway, what's the next one?
Zombie Fallout.
There's Zombie Fallout. I mean, I just love that series, dude.
See, the character. For me, I don't like zombie stories, but it's different because now I'm like, well, I already like these characters.
Yeah.
So now I'm seeing in this genre that I usually be like, yeah, I'm not gonna go into a zombie book. But now I'm like, well, now and then I'm like, oh no, this guy he always surprises me.
Yeah, and it's funny because we did, the Lycan one first, and so there were things that happened in the Lycan one with this, this one zombie, and then blah blah blah. And it's crazy because, like I said, you go to the Zombie Fallout, right? And there's a huge gap of time that happens, like 200 years or whatever. And it's like in Lycan Fallout, you see a zombie, and they were always referring to the zombie thing, and then you go back, and he's like a regular dude most of the time through most of the book.
Which because like in Lycan Fallout, he makes like a lot of jokes and references to like the past, which really got on my nerves.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah, because it was almost like douchey. It was almost like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't really care what everyone else thinks. Go eat a Pringles can or whatever, and it gets old. But then when you listen to Zombie Fallout,
I was like,
it makes sense because he's not doing it in a bad way. He's doing it because he outlived his family. I mean, he turned into a vampire, and they outlived his family.
Which, part of this narrator always surprising me is that they tell you that, and then like as the Lycanfall books go, you find out how exactly. I'm like, oh, I didn't think it was like that. I thought it was gonna be like, and then towards the end of every book, he manages to just do something so dark and so like gruesome that I'm like, right, he tricks you. He makes you think it's gonna be a comedy.
Yeah.
And then, especially in Lycan Fallout, just to go back, every time it went into like how the Lycans like operate, I was like, this is some of the darkest stuff I've ever read.
Yeah. But definitely read this one or listen to this one before you listen to Lycan. You'll enjoy it more. What's the next one?
The Aeronauts Windlass. This was the steampunk talking cat.
Oh yes. Oh, I like that one.
Yeah, that was still waiting for the sequel.
I guess not that much because I didn't remember.
I was not a good sign. I was like,
no, I like that one. That's the one with the spiders and all that. Yeah. No, that was actually pretty good.
This was my first entry into, because the author Jim Butcher was like, oh, like he's like an example for a lot of like writers and like how this guy like started. But I could not listen to the Stormfront audiobooks because of that narrator. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to jump to something else. I'm like, oh, this is my first steampunk book, and I read this before Espionage and Etiquette.
Yeah, that was good.
I don't know if I would have been as impressed with what it did, because when I did Espionage and Etiquette, I'm like, oh, this is a genre thing.
Yeah, and it didn't come across too much like a steampunk aspect. I like the whole cat thing where the cats have their own kind of society, and the humans knew it.
Yeah,
that was cool.
I really liked how they justified some of the steampunk aesthetics, which one of the rules in steampunk, I guess, is you use copper.
Oh, really?
That's like a rule, is, copper is like the metal that gets used. So like they explain that like the atmosphere is very like it deteriorates and rusts metal really quick. And then like, guns can't really be used. You have to cover everything in copper or it'll like deteriorate fast. So like that's why it's used. I like stuff like that where it's like, well, this is the aesthetic, and now I'm going to justify why it exists.
So, I mean, have they ever made a Abraham Lincoln steampunk?
Do you count Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter as steampunk?
I don't know. Is that steampunk?
I think they use... No, that's just historical nonfiction. I mean,
because, he's on the penny. And the penny was originally...
Copper. Oh my god. Oh my god. The original steampunk. Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln, right? We're finding out new things all the time. Anyway, so the next one.
The Way of Shadows was the next fan pick that we had, and that guy
fan pick.
That guy knew exact. That guy, I have it saved, but
okay.
While I'm talking,
yeah, it was. That was a great book, and what was so weird.
Golden Kamuy. I remember.
What was crazy about that book, what I liked so much about it was, this is gonna sound weird.
Super Kami Guru. I got it completely wrong. Super Kami Guru recommended it.
Thank you, sir. I liked it a lot, and I think I went over it in that. But thinking about it, it's like, it's so cookie cut, but the way that he did it works.
It's
just totally works.
When you like. There'll be times where I'm going through a story and I'm like, wow, this is really just doing all the notes that like someone else did.
Yeah.
And that was like an afterthought I had going through this book, where I'd be going through like, that was cool. Oh, that was really generic.
Yes.
Like I would like process that it was generic afterwards.
Yeah.
Because it was just told so well.
Yeah, and so many things are low hanging fruit where you saw them coming and you're like, but he did it so well where you still bought it, you still liked it, And it
is a dark fantasy, and I think I just remember this every time I go through a dark fantasy storyline. But I think the reason I prefer dark fantasy is I don't know what's going to happen to people, because in this one I had genuine tension for, because it is like in a dark fantasy that main character, some awful stuff can happen to them.
Yes.
So like I actually am worried, because I'm like, what is going? In a light fantasy I'm like, well, they're gonna escape. And in Dark Fantasy, I'm like,
yes.
Even if they escape, I know what happens to people.
So we live in a dark fantasy.
That's that working. Maybe a second. That's the subtitle to this podcast.
But it's actually good. I think it was well done.
You jumped onto the second one like right after.
Yeah.
Like I caught up to you.
Yeah. And the graphic audio, the only problem I had with it is that, you know, sometimes it's overwhelming, like with the foot stomps and the sword play.
I saw a lot of people had issues with how loud the music would be at times.
Yeah.
And sometimes it did not fit the vibe. Like, the music is good, and I really liked it, but sometimes I'm like, that is too epic for what's happening right now.
But overall, it was great. And like I said, it jumped right into the second one. It was really good. It's different than the first one. The first one has that typical, you know, kid that gets raised in the ghetto, and then you know wants to be trained by this assassin, which they're called wet boys, and they don't train anybody, especially this guy. And the voices were great too. Mm-hmm. The voices were great. Yeah.
Thurzo is one of my favorite mentor characters. And as the story goes, it starts playing with these tropes too. Because it is like, oh yeah, the mentor dies, and you see how they play with that, and I was like, that okay. Because it's like, is this generic or is it playing with the genre?
Yeah, and one of the things I liked about Durzo the most is like, you can never really figure him out.
I finished book 3, and every time something would happen, I'd be like, classic Durzo, he did it again.
That's what I mean. You think he's a man of his word, but then he's not. You think that he's a nice guy, and then he's not. And it's like.
And you think that, and then you think that, and then you're like, oh, but what about this?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
And you're like, dude.
And the finale of The Way of Shadows, I cried like all the time in this series. Like there was a scene in the second book where it's just a blacksmith talking, and just the way the voice actor captured the sense of awe about this like sword.
That's a blacksmith in the background.
I started tearing up.
Oh, I could totally see it.
I was just like, I feel it. I believe this story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fantastic pick. I loved it.
So what's next?
They pitched it to me, by the way. It's like, oh, he has like a venom power. Like, you're just hitting all my buttons, aren't you? After that, we did Dungeon Crawler Carl.
That, hands down, it's got to be one of the funnest books. It's just way fun.
Yeah, that's one of the. That's just a book that I'm like, yeah, I just listen to that every now and then.
Yeah. Damn it, Donut.
How it plays with the storyline, and how I thought it had one of the best openings to any story.
Oh, it was great. It was great. And we won't get too much into it because it's pretty intense. It's got all these different things.
And in fact, we have videos where we went in depth.
Yeah, but definitely go listen to watch the show, because it's a good book. And it's a lot like a lot of things. Mm-hmm. From Mockingbird to all these different things, but the way they do it, they do it really well. And if you've never played, let's say, or played Dungeons and Dragons or any like game like that, I would definitely listen to this more for just the ability of how they do that, how they rank up and level up and different things like that.
Which, yeah, we talked about that. I think it's technically a lit RPG, a literary RPG, but like it does it in a way that I've tried other lit RPGs, and I usually, especially in an audiobook, it is very annoying to hear a whole paragraph on stats.
Oh yeah.
And in this one, I looked forward to it because they were fun, and I was like,
great.
And it actually mattered in the story. Like when they say like, oh, you have +2 strength, it actually comes up.
Yeah.
And you actually feel that sense of progression, which not all of them are able to capture that feeling.
Achievement.
I genuinely looked forward to it.
I loved it.
Smiling. I had so much fun. I want this to be a TV series.
That would be fun.
I think we both ended up finishing that whole series, or we caught up to it. I don't think it's...
Yeah. No, I think I got... Yeah, I'm up to the God one. I think that's 3 or 4.
Yeah, which, the latest one that was out, I was like, I enjoyed it, but I felt like it didn't quite hit that spark for me.
Yeah.
Obviously, though, that series is... I'm just going to keep reading.
Yeah, it's just fun.
I'm just on that series until it ends.
Yeah, it's just fun. So what was the next one?
After that...
Wow, look at that. We're flying through the books.
It is actually weird, because I'm like, that's a lot of books, but then like we're almost caught up now. After that was I'm Not a Serial... Oh, no. No. It wasn't that one. Oh, it was Beginning of the End. Well, it's... The first book is called The Beginning of the End, and then the series is called like Apocalypse Z.
Oh yes,
Which we did get a little.
that's right.
We did get a little correction
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, so that one was written by a Spanish writer about a whole zombie takeover. So it was interesting. He's a lawyer, and he like snorkels and stuff. So it's a different perspective than from what we normally have writers here write about, because it's taking place, of course, in Spain
Yeah,
or wherever he's at.
Yeah, we did get it was friendly by Hugo Mendes, who's like, by the way, guys, this is not a South American tale. It takes place in Spain, by the way, in Europe. I think genuinely, I thought they were the same thing. I think I just said that was South American.
Oh, I might have got messed up with the author, because is the author from? Yeah, we don't. It's a good book. It's
good. I thought it was a really good zombie storyline too, because again, I'm usually against those kinds of stories.
Yeah, and I mean, it's tough. I mean, I know it's kind of sensitive now, but there's Russians in it and things like that. So, which is good.
Yeah, I thought it was. I was like, I believed it. It's always fun when you hear stories about plagues happening in the world now, because you're like, haha, that is what would happen.
And what's funny is, like, for some reason, we just kept on like falling into books that, like, this book had a cat in it. Mm-hmm. And we just kept on falling into books with similarities between each other. I think that's why we went down that whole rabbit hole.
Yeah, because it's like, oh,
it was funny.
Oh, it was like this, and then after that we did I'm Not a Serial Killer by Dan
I
Wells.
love that book.
Yeah.
I can't talk enough about that.
Yeah, I finished that series. I don't know if you checked in on any of the other books.
I didn't.
Yeah. The first one is a standalone. Like,
it's so good.
Having finished it, the first one really does just like that's its own story.
So good. And definitely go back and watch our show if you haven't, but watch the spoilers. I think we have a spoilers cut on that. Because that book has a lot of kind of twist in it.
Yeah, that was one where we had a talk before. So it's like,
yeah.
Because it's like you want people to be able to enjoy that reveal, because I got to enjoy the reveal.
Yeah.
And that's part of the experience for the characters, for everyone. Yeah. It's finding out what is this.
And like I said, one of the amazing things that I liked the most about the book was how they, dealt with him socially and stuff like that. And I remember we were even talking, it's not a big book. So we were like, well, how can we like fill up time? But I mean, just talking about his psyche and all that stuff. I mean, then we ended up like, wow, we got a lot of time.
Yeah. I was really, I think that was like the first book we were both like, this was great. We both felt the same level of excitement about it.
Yeah, it was good. It was good. So definitely.
Yeah, it's a horror thriller book, and that's all you can. It's a very cozy horror. That's what I'll give you.
Almost similar to Breeds, in the feel of it.
Yeah, that feel, and this also took place in winter. Winter's cozy. Winter horror. I'm for it every time, as far as I can tell. But this does lead, as
far as I can tell,
lead to now, because we were like, we're going to cover two books by two big authors. This was by Dan Wells, and after that was a book, one of the earlier books by Brandon Sanderson. And I was like, which one are you going to like more?
Yeah.
And
that one was a tough one because, like I said, how can I like this other book that's not that crazy, and then here's this guy that...
Yeah, this is the big fantasy author.
And it's tough because we haven't done a show on Way of Kings, which is another one of his books. But this was like one of his first books, right? Or big books.
This was like one of his first big like books where he knew this is getting published for sure. He like worked on he like helped finish up the Wheel of Time.
Yeah, and for me, man, I so didn't like it. If you want to see that, definitely watch that podcast. Yeah. I'm not like I'm yelling on the table or anything, but there were so many issues with it that I had. And I think it made it worse than that I read Way of Kings, which is such a brilliant piece.
And because I've been thinking about your metaphor for the vanilla and almonds, because that is why I kept on the series, is because I really loved those almonds. Like it felt like, oh, okay, I check out here, but like when it gets to the payoffs, I was always like, oh, that was worth it for me.
But that's what also hooks you into keep on going down that crappy road.
Mm-hmm. Oh, is that like Rocky Road?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Right? So, I mean, you get that almond and you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm looking for another almond. And you got to go through the whole thing and then you might find another one. There might be 3 in there.
Yeah, and that metaphor, I think it really holds up for the OG Mistborn trilogy. It really is like the payoffs are fantastic. But who do I recommend this to?
But it's getting there. That's the tough part. So, I mean, and not only that, by the time you get there, you pretty much kind of have been laxing reading it anyway. So you're like, okay, who's this?
And yeah, I mean, because I don't like the main character. I thought was like weak, and especially like some of this, and like what the most interesting character is like Kelsier. Yeah, I love him. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, I thought the story was gonna be about him. Yeah, it's kind of like, especially with the opening being about him. I was like, I kind of went in here. Because my rule is, if I'm interested in the first chapter, you have my full attention.
Yeah, and I've heard.
But that's under the impression the first chapter is the promise that I'm getting.
Right, and which is not.
But then it's like, oh, it's not about him really.
Right. And I've been doing some research because and like there's a book called Mistborn Prime, that's like the first like rough draft of it, and it's tough because it's like. Well, it's as of Way of Kings.
Oh, Way of Kings Prime.
And his draft is so much different. There's so many big, gigantic things that have changed. It's tough. I don't know if he just constantly changes things in his head, or what.
Well, yeah, his style, and each writer has a different technique. Yeah. He's like, this doesn't work for everyone. But he writes it, and then he goes back, revisits it, gets notes from other people. And he's like, oh, well, at the end I figured this would be cool, so let me try to like foreshadow that in this. And it's a constant refinement he does.
Yeah, but that didn't work for George Lucas.
Which is on the other hand, yeah. If too many director cuts.
Yeah. And then you get Jar Jar Binks and then, a whole Sith Lord maybe.
Well, and this is the thing too. I don't recommend Mistborn to people. I recommend Alloy of Law to people.
And we're going to be doing that soon.
Yeah. Because that is like, oh yeah, you would like Alloy of Law, but I'm like, oh, I think you need the context.
Yeah.
And then I'm thinking about it would have been cooler that, and because you still don't really, because it doesn't go like there's 40 more hours of audio books that you won't have listened to, but it is just like I'm like it would have been cooler to have you have what's this like with no context jumping in, versus me having full context.
Oh, I totally agree.
You don't have this sense of resentment towards Mistborn.
Oh no, totally agree.
But yeah, because it's like a Western magic, and I'm like, yeah, he would love that.
Yeah, I would love that.
Go through these other books first, though. And I'm like, I messed up.
Oh, it's okay. It's way worse. What's the next one?
Well, we just wrapped up with our first guest appearance.
That's right. Professor X.
Yes, a friend of mine did stand up, college professor, went to Harvard or I think one of the fancy colleges.
He's a stand-up guy.
Yeah, and we covered
Clan of the Cave Bear.
Clan of the Cave Bear. One of your original top.
One of my other top books, and we figured why not have a professor in. And weigh in.
Way of Kings, and I was happy with that. We'll see.
Yeah, definitely come and watch
Hopefully we don't get people being like he should replace Cody or something, and then
or replace me. What's up with that? But
stop posting that, please.
But
stop DMing me.
But we really, I appreciate the ride that we've been on already, and that you guys like it. We're still kind of working our way through it and figuring out what works, and what you guys like, let us know. I mean, we want to make it really kind of what's the word,
communal.
Man, that sounds so bad.
It sounds weird.
It didn't sound good.
Weird. Communal.
Yeah, it's like that's nasty.
Yeah,
that's what it sounds.
I was kind of thinking it's a communal experience. Yeah.
Yeah. No, not so much that, but interactive. That's what I was looking at. Communal. Interactive. So let us know what you guys think, and definitely get on the Discord, and let us know.
Yeah, and we're gonna in the future. This will be a live event of recapping, but we wanted to make sure we even knew what this was before we tried to tackle that.
Yeah, and like I said, just keep on DMing because the next group of books will be done on their own. So the next recap won't be recapping the older books that we just did today. They'll be recapping the books that we've done in that quarter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So now it's funny. The more that we build these books, the more we're going to make references because this is natural, right? Like the vanilla ice cream reference.
That's now just going to be a term for how describing digging through to get like payoffs and stuff.
But definitely, like I said, definitely go back and re-listen to some. So I enjoy it because even the technical part of it is changing. We started originally, I think, in Volume 1 studio, and then we moved to another studio, and we had technical stuff where we were just putting movies in the back, and I think there's one episode that the images cut out altogether. And it's just
we like video, we had video issues.
Yeah. So we're definitely moving towards that. And we might do goals in our Patreon where maybe we can get, some different things, but it's kind of a learning experience and we're moving forward.
Which, by the whole movie thing, like adding the movies in was probably the most difficult part about editing.
Oh, wow.
Because I was like, oh, I don't buy things, so I'm gonna need to acquire these movies.
Yes.
Which would mean I had to screen capture like, oh, they're copyright free. You're not supposed. I don't have to.
Yeah.
But like I would just sit there for like 3 hours, be like, okay, and once this is done, I can then finish editing the video. And I would just be like, and just the whole time, like, this isn't even worth it. This is like,
I know.
It's like fun, but like, yeah, it's not.
And we're getting better visually because, there were times that we looked like, I don't know, we were in a orchard cellar in some of those.
Yeah, figuring we got like lights. We got
lights and a green screen, and we're moving forward towards more of a set aspect of it. We're changing our name, so there's going to be a new kind of mascot and a logo.
Because I can't imagine Googling, because it all like YouTube. We tried to find, we were on it and we could not find it in YouTube.
Yeah.
So like that's,
and hence part of it was it's live from Saturn, because live, different ways that'll be easier to find and things like that. And then eventually we might, if you guys really like the logo and like the feel of it, we're going to be, because I do my own shirts, so I'll be doing shirts and different things like that. It's going to be fun. I think it's just going to be fun. I think it's going to be really cool.
Yeah. This is kind of like, this was our first quarter, getting everything figured out, thumbnails and...
Yeah. And let us know how you feel about Professor X. He's a nice guy.
Yeah. And, join the Discord, because you see we have like a whole section. We got mostly Will. We got a guy,
Will, you rock, dude.
We just know him by name.
And Gotchi.
Dude,
you guys rock, dude.
Super Kamui. Slytherin, Samari's on there sometimes. But yeah, we know these names, and like, we got... Yeah. He wrote a whole meme from the American Psycho, Huey Lewis and the News Scene, for dialogue, like for a parody of that scene. I'm like, oh yeah, can you do that for Heroes Die? He wrote out a whole one for Heroes Die, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I have fun with the community. I think
and it's cool because there's like the title that we're changing to, it has everything in there. Like there's an art section that I post different art in, not just that's happened in the show. I think I just posted a piñata that I did like 20 years ago of R2D2. And so it's just a fun environment, man. It's just really cool.
Yeah. And we're still having people trickling in, Discord, finding out about it, going through, finding out from Volume 1. We still get people like Jaquan Gold, who was like came to support. Like he just found out.
Oh, cool.
Like he was like, oh, I missed the live where you announced that this is where you guys are doing this.
Cool.
Lloyd Forger, he does his algorithm comments. He invented the idea of just commenting algorithm.
Really?
Yeah, he was the guy. He spearheaded like a lot of like things. Yeah, that guy is. I think his real name says. Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to say people's real names if that's not their username.
Oh yeah, just don't.
But yeah, he was. Yeah, he did a lot of like, oh, like this is the system for.
Wow.
Yeah, the Sauce Father visited the comments.
Oh wow, cool.
Yeah, more and more people are like, there's still. Oh, I didn't realize you guys made a video saying this is where you were going. Yeah, just.
And we're gonna be doing a live pretty soon, because I know. I don't know a lot of everybody, and I'm old, so I have bad with names. But I like the lives. They're cool.
Mm-hmm.
People commenting and stuff. It's cool.
Yeah, and the end goal for me is, in my mind for recording is always like eventually we can like record live every time. To just, 'cause that's why we were, it's a solid conversation through and through, unless something terrible happens.
Yeah.
Which it never has.
And it's tough because in the end, I mean, that's a bad thing, but I could talk forever. Mm-hmm. But trust me, my family will tell you.
Yeah, it's we go into tangents a little bit, but
yeah, and it's fun because I want to challenge us, and you guys let us know. I mean, I really want to challenge us in books that I know we won't like.
Yeah,
because I want to challenge us to see if we can see a different aspect to it. Because like you guys have already heard, I sometimes listen to books a couple different times to see if I can get past what's in my head, So it would be interesting. Short stories we want to do. And what are those like comic things where they make short stories before them?
Light novels?
Light novels.
We would definitely do the Goblin Slayer light novel.
And I'm interested in that. I was looking a little bit about it. That's kind of right down my alley.
Yeah, it's a really cool. I prefer the light novel story to the manga story.
Oh.
Which the Goblin Slayer season 2 just got announced.
Oh.
But I'm like, I just caught up to the light novels because I'm like, I just want to know the story. I don't want to wait 5 years for.
Now is this for kids or is there a dragon lair?
What do you like? I mean, Goblin Slayer is not for kids, but like, what do you?
So is there a goblin lair?
Is there a goblin? No, there's
just Goblin Slayer.
You know what? I would love a kid friendly spin off of Goblin Slayer.
Really?
You just need.
So it's like an adult. The Goblin Slayer is an adult.
Did you see the anime?
I haven't seen anything.
Oh, yeah. So the anime, it was like it was like trending for a bit because it was a very controversial opening. And like the thing with the series is it's exploring the implications of a lot of fantasy storylines.
Ah.
And it's like, oh yeah, in fantasy storylines, that's usually like just like they like mention like, oh yeah, they kidnap women. And it explores like all the implications of that, even the psychology of people that they're like fine with that happening.
Oh wow!
Because I remember actually like when I was like with a group of friends, we were watching a video on how to play D&D. The video just says a goblin breaks into a bar and kidnaps a woman. We're like, what? That's just a thing that happens in this world? And the Goblin Slayer is basically like, yeah, that's a thing that just happens to people. And
oh wow,
the manga's much darker and more brutal than the anime, and the light novel is one of a couple of storylines where I have been so disgusted I had to put it down for a bit.
Oh jeez.
It's a really brutal story, and and like as it goes on, and it does a lot of creative things with like the idea of a protagonist and like this character who like he's not the chosen one. In fact, the chosen one's a side character that is mentioned, and they do their own thing, and it's
crazy.
It's one of my favorite fantasy worlds. So we'll cover that.
Yeah, well, I'm scared. I'm scared to cover that.
But it's also like I tell people, I love it. Don't read it. It's not for you.
Yeah, I'm kind of scared to do it, but hey, we'll see. But so we'll do a lot of those things. So, like I said, definitely let us know because I love the fact that some of the fans have already done books and we did them. Mm-hmm. That was cool. It's tough on the first one. I always worry about if I'm gonna like it, but I mean we're honest, so I think we've been pretty much honest through all the reviews that we've had.
I was thinking like my attitude for books is it's different compared to like a movie or a TV show.
Yeah.
With a TV show, I'm like, this is a corporate product.
Yeah.
But with a book, it's usually this is someone's vision. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah, but they could be doing a vision for the corporate.
They could also be doing that, and that is what happened in Mistborn. Was he was told, oh, make it darker because dark is in.
Wow.
So like Way of Kings was like he got enough clout to tell his own thing. So yeah, it's not even really a fair thing in my mind, but
that's true.
I just tend to like the stories of books more.
But we'll get into all of that.
And also, we both watched Gantz. That's getting a movie soon.
Yeah, Gantz was pretty. I mean, I've watched it a couple times actually. It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, it's by the director of Overlord.
Oh, and I could totally see that in a movie. Well, I mean, you see it in the anime. Well, it's computer. Actually.
I could not stop reading the manga. It's like 600 chapters, I think. And I was just like, on my lunch break. I was like, and then like I got home.
Oh, wow.
I binged like the whole series.
That's crazy. I don't know if I've ever binged. Oh, I have. Movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But, but anyway. But definitely. So, like I said, this one was just like, this show was just kind of just go over what we went through. Just hopefully you've been here through the whole thing and stick with us.
And if not, now you know what we talked about. So.
No, that's true. You can bring it up to your friends and parties.
Yeah. Did you know there's a book called Dungeon Crawler Carl?
And I totally thought about that. I thought you could totally use our show, right, for, just conversation piece. You don't even have to read it if you didn't like it. But guarantee you might throw that out on a party, right?
Yeah. Did you know there's a book on fantasy agriculture, Clan of the Cave Bear?
Right.
Actually,
Someone says to you, "Oh my gosh, yeah, do you see that werewolf movie?" No, but I read Breeds. That's what you should really listen to. Mm-hmm. It has werewolf dogs, and you could leave it at that, and all of a sudden you're bawling. They're looking at you like, "Damn."
Yeah, and here's what you do: you say, "Well, I don't want to give the story away."
Yes. You go, you know what? I don't want to give the story away. I already listened to it. Go listen to Live from Saturn. They'll break it down for you.
They'll help someone like you.
Look at that.
Get caught up.
Dude.
You can be the guy who reads books.
Oh, my goodness.
Can you imagine such a position in life?
Oh, yeah. And then how many you read.
You could listen to an episode, buy the book. Someone asks you what that book's about.
And there you go. Yeah, because we pretty much break it down. Yeah. So, and then you can bring up little things for the person that did read it that tries to get you.
Yeah.
All you got to do is something like, well, I didn't really believe the character because of this, and just repeat something we said. Mm-hmm. And that guy's going to go, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Okay, maybe, and then they'll say, maybe I'll check it out, which means they're not going to check it out.
Correct.
And then, you keep having interactions like that.
Oh, dude. You could totally pull it off. I have faith in you. But that's what we do. We don't read any of the books. No, just kidding.
I don't actually like books.
No, thank you guys. So definitely get on our Discord. Share it. Talk to people. Yeah. We'll check you later. Remember, Live from Saturn.
I couldn't think of any spaceship words.
Oh, that's fine. I would actually add just what you just said. I can't think of any spaceship sounds.